Record-breaking run. McLaughlin-Levrone dominates 400m championship in Tokyo gold medal fire. A night of history in Tokyo. Tokyo, a city where neon lights dance across skyscrapers and tradition collides with modernity, became the epicenter of track and field greatness. The 2025 World Athletics Championships had already delivered iconic performances, world records, heartbreaks, comebacks, but nothing compared to the anticipation swirling around one event, the women's 400-meter final. The whispers had begun months earlier. Could Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, the American sensation, do it again? Known for her unmatched mastery of the 400-meter hurdles, she had already rewritten the history books in that event. But this time, it wasn't about barriers. It was about the pure, unforgiving, one-lap sprint, the 400m flat. By the end of the night, the whispers turned into roars, and the roars became history. McLaughlin-Levrone didn't just win. She dominated. She ran with a rhythm that seemed untouchable, clocking a time that etched her name into another chapter of track and field immortality. The build-up, a journey to Tokyo. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone's road to Tokyo wasn't a straight path. For years, she was hailed as the queen of the 400-meter hurdles, breaking world records with elegance and ease. But switching her focus to the flat 400m raised eyebrows, could she handle the different tactical demands? Would her speed endurance translate? Was it even worth the risk of stepping out of her comfort zone? Her answer came not through words but through relentless training. In the build-up to Tokyo, coaches reported her sessions were nothing short of brutal. Long repetitions on the track, grueling weight room sessions, and recovery routines that tested every ounce of discipline. Sydney wasn't just preparing to compete. She was preparing to dominate. Meanwhile, the competition was fierce. Defending champions, seasoned veterans, and rising stars all eyed the gold medal. The women's 400-meter had become one of the marquee events of the championships, in part because of Sydney's presence. Her aura drew attention, and her rivals knew they'd have to run the race of their lives just to keep up. The atmosphere, a Tokyo night charged with energy. When race day finally arrived, the Olympic Stadium in Tokyo buzzed with electricity. Tens of thousands of fans waved flags, chanted names, and clicked away on smartphones trying to capture history. The 400-meter final was set. The lane assignments were announced, each athlete stepping into the spotlight. But when Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone's name echoed through the stadium, the noise swelled into something thunderous. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just nodded slightly, eyes locked on the track ahead. Tokyo's night sky seemed to pause, as though the entire city was holding its breath. The race, a masterclass in speed and control. The gun fired. McLaughlin-Levrone exploded out of the blocks with precision. Known for her impeccable rhythm in hurdles, she carried the same fluid grace into the flat sprint. Her stride length was immense, but it wasn't reckless. It was measured, calculated, almost metronomic. By the first 100 meters, she had already gained ground on the stagger. Rivals tried to match her surge, but it became clear they were burning fuel too early. Sydney, meanwhile, looked effortless, as though gliding on invisible rails. At 200 meters, the crowd realized what was unfolding. She wasn't just leading, she was creating separation. Her arms pumped with perfect efficiency, her face calm, her focus unshaken. By the final bend, the question wasn't who would win. It was how fast she would go. The last 100 meters showcased her strength and endurance. Unlike many sprinters who fade, Sydney seemed to accelerate. Each stride pounded the track with a rhythm that resonated like a drumbeat of destiny. Her competitors were straining, grimacing, fighting to stay upright. Sydney. She was soaring. She crossed the line, arms pumping, chest forward. The clock stopped. The stadium erupted. The time, a record-breaking statement. The scoreboard lit up with numbers that sent shockwaves around the globe. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone had not only won gold, she had run the fastest time by an American in decades, shattering championship records and edging terrifyingly close to the world record. Reporters scrambled for superlatives. Social media exploded. Fellow athletes shook their heads in disbelief. It wasn't just victory, it was a statement. Sydney had proven she wasn't just the queen of the hurdles. She was the queen of the track. The aftermath, emotions and reflection. As she caught her breath, Sydney knelt on the track, her head bowed. It wasn't exhaustion, it was emotion. Years of doubt, and perseverance culminated in that single lap. She stood, wrapped herself in the American flag, and jogged toward the stands. Tears glistened in her eyes as fans screamed her name. "I just wanted to test myself," she later told reporters, her voice steady but filled with awe. "The 400m is brutal. But tonight, everything came together. I'm grateful, I'm blessed, and I'm just getting started." Her humility contrasted beautifully with her dominance. She wasn't boastful. She wasn't arrogant. She was simply a champion who had embraced the challenge and delivered. Why this matters, beyond the stopwatch. Sydney's victory in Tokyo wasn't just about the clock or the medal. It was about redefining what's possible. Track and field often separate specialists, hurdlers, sprinters, distance runners. But Sydney blurred the lines. She showed that greatness isn't confined to one lane. It's about courage, adaptability, and relentless belief. Her run also reinvigorated interest in the 400m, a distance that often lives in the shadow of the 100-meter dash or the glamour of hurdles. After Tokyo, young athletes across the world began dreaming of conquering the one-lap sprint. Sydney didn't just run for herself. She ran for a generation. The global reaction. Within hours, headlines flashed across every sports outlet. McLaughlin-Levrone rewrites history in Tokyo. From hurdles to glory, Sydney dominates the 400m. The greatest one-lap performance of the century. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok exploded with clips of her sprint. Hashtags like #SydneySupremacy and #Tokyo400m trended worldwide. Even rival athletes, usually reserved with their praise, called her performance untouchable, legendary, and beyond human. In her home country, watch parties turned into celebrations. Kids wore homemade shirts with SYD scrolled across them. Coaches used her race as a teaching moment. This is how you run with discipline and heart. Breaking down the run, the science of Sydney's speed. Sports scientists later dissected the race frame by frame. They marveled at her stride length, noting it averaged nearly 3 meters per step. Her top-end speed matched world-class 200m runners, while her endurance mirrored that of seasoned 800m specialists. Her lactate threshold, honed through years of hurdle training, allowed her to maintain velocity when others faded. Analysts agreed. It wasn't just physical talent, it was technical mastery. Her upright posture, efficient breathing, and even her distribution of effort were flawless. In short, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone didn't just run fast, she ran perfect. Legacy in motion. Tokyo wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like and share. Till next time.